Today on What Went Wrong, we talk about the you wear on your movie. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I made over 40 feature films. And in order to sell characters, sometimes they have to wear a particular outfit.
Yeah. Or to tell a story effectively, you have to wear a particular outfit.
One of our films, Not So Sane Man's Guide, a series, Not So Sane Man's Guide to the Multiverse, where Ernest and Brad, some of their characters, are cops. That outfit sold it. Those uniforms looked really good, and I believed them as cops. Which is incredible because if you know Ernest, he's anything but a cop.
He's very uncop-like in real life.
But I believed him as a cop in that outfit.
He looked the part.
I could see him do it. Yeah,
looking the part's very important.
Yeah. With Halloween right around the bend, and and being about films, let's talk a little bit about costume.
Yay!
Now we made a film, and I actually wonder if I broke any sort of international employment laws or anything by going up when I went to visit you in Germany in 2001.
Yeah.
This was right after 9/11 too.
It was. That was an interesting time, but it was.
And we shot a little film called Desert Rose. Never finished it. It didn't. One of the very few that never got finished.
Right.
But that stuff wound up in the Innocence Saga many years later.
Many years later.
And
18 years later.
We shot stuff that took place in the 11th century, 12th century, 13th. And you're such a history buff that I was able you'd be able to say, when is this? Oh, it's 1181. you bring out.
I go and cobble some together. All right, we're gonna be wearing this, long dresses and stuff like that. The guys got this and cloaks and pants and stuff like that.
And you had collected that stuff over years and years, and I don't know how much money you put into it.
A lot.
So I as the filmmaker was very lucky to have a friend like you who has all that kind of stuff. Because that helped sell it, especially being able to go down to Rothenburg, and that was right, Rothenburg, right?
You're right. And
shoot those incredible scenes with that great scenery, and even though that was shot on like digital 8, it still looks great.
And the weather actually cooperated. We needed it cold and miserable, and you know what? Christmas Eve area time. In 2001, it was freaking cold and miserable. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of snow.
So it added to it. So it was one of those kismet things where everything just came together and it worked perfectly. Yeah. Another example of looping.
Yeah. Well, because at one point you wanted to be saying the lines, and of course the wind was howling, absolutely howling. There was no way to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so we had to loop the stuff in.
Yeah.
And then because that was like 15, 16 something. And then we ended up going to 18 something. Yeah, because we had the one that was in 2001 because Reiner was helping us. My friend Reiner Bruckmuller, and buddy, how you doing? My friend in Germany was helping me with the words. So yeah, we went to Rothenburg right around Christmas time, and it was miserable. We were dressed in the 1600s, 16th century, 16th, early 17th century stuff. And then we went to right outside. It was in the town I lived in, which was Frankenweinheim, Germany. We've been living there for years, and we went in front of the church, and I was wearing. That was supposed to be 18th, 19th century, like the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s, and so we were dressed differently, but still in period. I was in kilt and doublet and jacket and scarf and hat and beret, or tam is what they call them back, and so. But the same kind of stuff, so it all looked. It went through, and so you said, "Oh, this is 1800s." All right, so we knew what to wear, and Roxanne was wearing the proper kind of Victorian look, whereas we were in like the Elizabethan, so now we're Victorian. And it was very. It was kind of like it was like dress up for me. I was like, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" You know. That being said, unless you have a friend who's been collecting historical stuff for 20 freaking years like I and now 30 freaking years like I have, and who has a pretty good amount of experience with with costuming. Basket hilt was used primarily in the early 1700s to late 1600s, most notably in what was called the Rebellion of 1745, or the Old 45, when the Scottish system was totally torn apart. Not as much as some, not like professional costuming, but understanding. I worked, for those of you who don't know, I worked for a couple of years at the Texas Renaissance Festival. And we're about to get into the definitions of what kind of performance, or what kind of what's what I'm looking for, what kind of costuming you have to have, because there's 3 different types that we're going to talk about. So we have to have a certain type of costumes, and so they want to look realistic, but then we're going to be anachronistic because people want to see certain things, which we talk about the audience wants to see. Mm-hmm. It was set in the 1500s. King Henry. Well, Scots weren't really wearing kilts, but people want to see Scots in kilts, so we're going to wear kilts. God dang it, And so you have to have the realism, or decide: do you want realism? Do you want perfect, absolute realism, or do you want what the people want to see? And if you want to talk about Scottish in particular, we can talk about Braveheart versus the one about Robert the Bruce, which had, what's the name, who was Captain Kirk. I can't remember the name. I can't remember his name now. So they did. You had Braveheart, which was, I mean, I love Braveheart. Don't get me wrong. I love Braveheart. Costume wise, whoa, way out there. The princess and the English look pretty good. The Scots, not even close. But then you had the latest one of the Bruce, where you had Chris Pine playing the Bruce, and their costumes were fantastic. Their sword work was horrible. It was horrible, but the costumes were great. So you have to understand the concept of, what do you want? Do you want realism? Do you want what the audience wants? What are you going for? And then you decide how you want to go that direction. And I can let you talk about that, or I can talk about it.
Well, we'll come back to that.
I
want to talk a little bit more from a filmmaker standpoint.
Yeah.
But it's I was very fortunate to have somebody like that.
You were.
But I also want to stress that there are steampunk societies, historical reenactment societies,
LARPers,
all these different places that you can call. And, not all the time, but there's going to be a lot of times where people are just excited to dress up and come and be an extra.
They will bring a mountain of crap to your house and dump it all over you. You won't even...
Because they're proud of it, they enjoy it, they love it.
Spend a lot of time with it.
And here's a chance to be in a movie.
Feed them, and they will do anything for you.
So,
and be prepared to listen to their stories.
There shouldn't be a lot of whining about, oh, well, I did this, I want to do this movie, but all the costumes are going to be expensive. And it's like, pick up the phone, start calling.
You want a Civil War movie? Call some reenactors. Those guys are whack jobs.
Yeah.
They will bring all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Western reenactors.
Yeah. So just because you want to do a period piece, you're not pricing yourself out of your film. Now you can, depending on how accurate you want to be, or how much of a stickler you're going to be. But there are so many people out there that aren't as educated as you in the terms of historical accuracy of that. Case in point is when we were shooting the Nazi Germany stuff, or the 1940 stuff, and there were some Nazis that were supposed to be in this one scene in the desert. It's okay, come dressed as a Nazi soldier, blah, 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 you're going to be doing this. Now, we didn't expect, them to come up with a full Nazi uniform or anything, but just dress kind of 40s. And a dude shows up in Birkenstocks, and it's like,
I knew he wasn't German.
No.
Dude, please, come on, really? So now I got to try and frame out the sandals, and so there's people, and you say 1940s, and that was, in the 1940s stuff that we did, we would say, okay, we're going 40s, and people would be like, oh, I know exactly what you're looking for, and they'd show up, and I'm like, dude, that's 50s, or no, they didn't have poodle skirt, it wasn't a poodle skirt thing, there would just be nuances of somebody who watched, who loved 40s films, Bogart films, and I just like, oh, man.
It's something that I've noticed, and it happens, is there's a complete lack of efficacy when it comes to historical understanding. It's something that I've been railing, because I do like history. I'm a little bit weird about history, and once again, my problem is memorizing dates. Well, but certain things that I know and see and realize, and once I look at it and really understand it, I can say, I'm not one to tell somebody in a film, well, the lapels were this direction and they're actually like that. I'm not going to get crazy like that. But it's like, poodle skirt, sweetheart, this is 1943, Berlin. What are we doing? And so there is a time when you have to, I say there's a time, when it comes time to tell your actors, okay, 1940s, you got to be specific. Because some of these people go, oh, I know what they're looking for. And they may have no actual understanding that a poodle skirt is not World War II. They just may not realize that. Hell, ask your actors, when was World War II?
Yeah.
There's something exciting for you. Here's something exciting for you. When was World War II? Comments below. And that's one of those things, because there's a lot of people who don't know when World War II happened.
Yeah.
It
I remember for a history class, one of the assignments was to do some sort of creative. We were studying World War II at that point, and I remember my project was a Monopoly board of World War II, and it had I'd get kicked out of school today.
Yeah.
But like the electric company was like the electric chair from Germany, and like the utilities company were the showers. But then it had Pearl Harbor and Berlin like as Monopoly, or not Pearl Harbor, but it was like Tokyo and then like the Baltic, Baltic and Mediterranean,
right.
The ones that were the least valuable property.
Right.
Take a guess at what those were.
I don't even want to know.
Nagasaki.
I didn't think you were actually going to go there, but okay.
Well, property value.
When it's been irradiated, it's typically a lot less and less valuable. Yeah.
So so it was so there was a lot of comedy in it and very inappropriate humor, but
inappropriate humor is what we do.
Yeah, but I learned and I understood and I valued that history because I was and that allows me to look back today and see the shit that's going on, and the people that are calling themselves anti-fascist. I'm like,
are the fascists.
You do realize you're doing exactly by the book what the brown shirts did, right?
Right. And for those of you who don't know what the brown shirts, those are the Nazi stormtroopers that helped Hitler take control of Germany.
Yes.
And they are acting exactly, and the Antifa guys are basically
following the book.
Exactly that. I mean, seriously, it's like they studied. Okay, so going on.
Yeah. So that's why history is so important to me. I mean,
right.
The infamous quote, those who don't, those who fail to study history are doomed to
repeat it. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And here we go.
So the costumes and the looks and everything, that's definitely something that is not as, that I didn't study as much, but
right.
by studying everything else, I can remember, I didn't see, at Casablanca, I didn't see Churchill, Stalin, and
Roosevelt.
Thank you, Roosevelt, sitting there in T-shirts, or the women behind them wearing hoop skirts or anything like that. So that sort of just osmosis, got osmosisized into me.
I got it.
But at the same time, there are times where I can watch a Braveheart and maybe 100, 200 years difference. It's like, I'll go into it. But at the same time, a Nazi shows up in Birkenstocks, you're going to throw me out of the movie.
Yeah.
So there is there's the give and the take.
Right.
And that will come down to, how accurate you want to be. And again, one of the films that we're going to be doing in the future, next year is set in the future, but I want this kind of a steampunk kind of a look. So it's sort of like, okay, well, where am I going to get all these outfits? And I go onto Amazon, and there's some great stuff on there. The quality is not that great.
Right.
You start reading the reviews and like, well, this button was sewn on this way. Oh, it's very, very thin, blah, blah. But on a film, that doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So I'm going to hand that over to you.
It's the concept that what you're going to see on a movie is going to be seen through the lens, ironically speaking, of the movie screen itself. Meaning that what you're watching is going to be over there. And the person that you're seeing is inside the screen. And so what they're wearing is seen through the time and through the space of this media.
Plus, it's a flattened image.
And so the type of costume you're going to have, whether it's real or not, whether it looks real or not, is able to be, like everything else in film, a Potemkin's village. Meaning that, there's a reference for you in case you don't know that one. What you're looking at may look like a Nazi uniform with braiding and death head and the swastika on the armband. Okay. But is it really? And the example I'll give is when we did number 7, and you had me as Colonel, what's his name, who was hiding in Germany, basically, as a Nazi officer. And I remember I got to San Antonio, is when I was based in Detroit. I was flying passengers at the time. This is in 2009, I think it was.
I'd say 8.
8,
Yeah,
2008?
No, it was 8. Yeah.
Okay, 2008. So I'd been there for a couple years at this point, and I get to the house, and you give me my costume, and it's basically, you're gonna love this, guys. It's basically an old U.S. Army jacket. It's green. Okay, that and it was that green. Before they went to the darker green, it was the old ugly like lime green, and you're just like, what the. And Brad had taped these little swirly things that he had made out of some kind of cording, and it kind of looked like telephone cording. It was the weirdest thing, and it was like duct tape, or not duct tape, electrical tape on one end, and it was basically just like basted to the jacket on both sides. This golden red, just whatever it was, and then I had these 2 insignia that were paper squares about yay big around with the stuff on it. It was the Colonel insignia here and here, right? I don't even know if Germany had a uniform that looked like that, because the Germans had. I'll say this about the Nazis, not the Nazis in general, but the Nazis, the German military back then, the Germany 1940s, they looked awesome. Their uniforms, the Wehrmacht uniforms, I mean, the SS being what they were, and the SS looked great in their black uniforms, but the Wehrmacht uniforms, the gray and the dark gray, and by the way, just for the record, the Wehrmacht were not Nazis. The Nazis were the actual political party. The National Socialists, Nationale Sozialisten, was shortened to Nazis. But the Germans were just, the Wehrmacht was just the army. They were just army guys. But their uniforms were fantastic. I mean, gorgeous. And I remember looking at them like, wow, Now, 40s being 40s and 30s, and Europeans, they got their shit straight anyway. But I was given this old army jacket with the gold buttons on it, and it barely fit me because I'm a 52, 54 across the shoulders, and this was like a 46 or 48, and I'm like, and it came to here, and I was like, are you sure about this? And Brad said to me, don't worry, it's gonna look good on uniform. And I was like, all right, I don't know, because remember, I'm a historical, I'm a historical whack job. I love this shit. And here I am wearing an old army jacket that smells a little funny, with these things with two threads holding it on, and it's duct tape on one side, or electrical tape, not duct tape. And paper insignia, and an armband that it looked like someone sewed it together while they were really drunk. I mean, really, really high on something. It had like threads hanging out. It wasn't straight. The red ribbon wasn't quite. It did like this. It was wavy. And I'm like. But Brad, and you said it's going to look great. And now we go to the footage.
Nächstes Mal werden Sie Herr Jones finden, ja. Vielleicht werfen Sie ihn nie in eine Stube des giftigen Spinnen. Ach, ich weiß es nicht. Sie können vielleicht zum Beispiel ihn schießen.
For the movie production, it's what you the filmmaker, make it look like. It will look like how you want it to look, depending on how you feel. It was filmed in black and white, which made it even better, so you couldn't tell it was green. It looked black. or dark gray, dark black, whatever it was. It was a dark color. The armband was on the side, could barely see it, but you could tell what it was, and it was red.
Yeah.
That's another thing is the uniform. Everything was black and white, but the armband was red.
Yeah.
With the Nazi symbol on it, the swastika. And I remember looking at it and like, it looks fantastic. Oh, it looks really good. And Brad's uniform, of course, in the other scene, because he was also playing a German. He was playing a German sergeant, and his stuff looked really good. And the guy you had playing my sergeant, Obergefeites, looked good. And I was like, I remember just thinking about it, but it was all papers, all this other stuff. So I was like, wow.
Yeah, and that scene was shot in my kitchen.
Yeah.
Or the dining room.
But it was it was an older house anyway. I mean, the house has been around since a while, but it was in that little corner, so the window had that look, or not the window, the
French doors.
the French doors, and the construction and everything looked a certain way, and it would totally pass. And I remember being very, very impressed with that part of the movie.
In chapter 9 of the saga, the OK Corral stuff, we had those frock coats that the Earps wore.
Yeah.
And that fabric, very thin, very cheap material, but it was black. We had the pattern. Roxanne sewed those up, threw them on. If you took them, opened it up and looked at the inside of it, it was a mess. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
But for what we needed it for, you put it on, and those guys... That walk, man, when they're walking
Badass
down
looking.
from Tombstone, and those jackets, but you look at those jackets and you inspect them and you take them off and you look at them, it's a disaster.
It's useless.
But for the purposes of that film, they were incredible.
Now we talk about if you're on stage. Stage actors, if you've ever worked on stage, the costuming that you have is usually thin, not put together very well. Usually it's being repaired in between every show because you've torn it or messed it up or done whatever else. And it's not in the best of shape. It's just not. It's certainly not very thick. It's certainly not very whatever. And it may not even be the fabric it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. If you're playing in 1940s, whatever, you're wearing wool and gabardine and some other stuff like that. And it may be, lycra, spandex, who knows what it is. Or whatever they've got back there, whatever they've got to make it out of, okay? But the thing is, you're in the audience over here, and those people on the stage up there, and I can't tell. I can't tell that the buttons are sideways or whatever else. I don't have any idea. They're a gold button, great. You're in a British uniform or whatever, and you may not realize that every single button is different on that uniform, because I am 20 feet away in the audience. I can't see that, and it looks great. And I expect if you're doing a Victorian piece, I expect corsets and I expect dresses and I expect stuff. It can be zippers. I'm not gonna know. I can't tell. Maybe if I have an eagle eye or if I have my glasses on, I can see there's a zipper there. But am I gonna really know that otherwise? No. There's no way you're gonna be able to tell. You can get away with stuff on a stage that you can't even get away with in a movie because they can see zippers and certain things like that. But on a TV, on a stage, they'll never see that stuff. And so you've got the concept of movies, which can be just whatever the hell, It could be any old thing you want it to be. And on stage can be whatever. And then we talk about what I used to do, which was theater in the round or up close stuff, to where I'm going to have people right here looking at my stuff. It has to be, if not museum quality, at least recreated quality clothes. Not a costume. It has to be clothing. Because I'm wearing this at the fair. We'd wear it 2 times a week at the weekends for 7 or 8 weekends. I can't remember now. All day, every day. 9 o'clock till sundown. And I would have people, right here looking at me from the top, the bottom, the side, of everything else. My stuff had to be tight. Okay. Now, here's the thing about all that. And it was. My stuff, I was dead on. I had several doublets. I had several different sets of stuff. I have several different sets of cloaks. I have a rabbit fur cloak that's made entirely of rabbit fur. I have leather boots. I have several types of leather boots. I have several different swords that are actual reproduction swords. I can whip that thing out. It's made of Spanish steel, and I can actually go to town on you. If I was to fight someone... And I can sword fight. If I was to fight somebody with my sword versus like an old actual sword, I would kill them. Because I could probably cut their stuff in two. I've got the doublet or the tams and the berets and the brooches and the metal and the pins, knives, daggers, axes. I have a cow femur that's been polished and packed with resin. It's got straps on it. I mean, I have all kinds of stuff. Okay, and it looks. You could put it on a mannequin and stick it in a museum, and it would suit the bill of what they want. Here's the thing. Ask me how much all that stuff costs.
How much did all that cost?
The stuff I was wearing in the scene in the Desert Rose #7 was probably over $2,500. Just what I was wearing, not including what Roxanne was wearing. Her dress alone was probably over $3,500, easily. You know, and that's not including the swords or the daggers or the axes or anything else we were carrying. Just the clothing. Okay. And here's the thing. Do you, as an independent filmmaker, have $3,000 for one person's costume?
Nope.
Nope. You do not. Okay. Do you have enough money to go down to the local
Thrift
store? And do you have enough money to print out some Nazi symbols? And do you have someone who can weave some like freaking electrical wire together? Colored electrical wire and electrical tape it on one side and then like run a running stitch. Do you have that much money? Yes, you do. And so that's the idea is you could get the beautiful costumes. You could have the museum quality. You could go down to a costume place and get the Nazi uniforms or the American uniforms or the 1940s gear or the Victorian, or you could have a seamstress make a boned corset for you. But it's going to be prohibitively expensive. Whereas a local thrift store, electrical wire, and paper stuff will run you $20, okay, for a Nazi uniform as opposed to an actual put together Nazi uniform, which would probably be several hundred, if not $1,000 or more for one.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, if you're going to do a period piece, if you don't have the money to do the costuming, you don't have the money for that. What you do have is a telephone to call the crazy people who do have the money for that. The Civil War reenactors for the 19th century. The SCA people. The SCA guys are great. It's basically from like the Greeks to when Elvis went into the army. I mean, they've got it all. You know, they stop around the 16th century or so. And some of their stuff isn't always, because it's a reenactment. It's a fun reenactment. Basically, these guys get together and beat the crap out of each other on weekends and drink a lot at night. It's like being in Valhalla, really. It's like being in Valhalla with pickup trucks. It's kind of what it's about. But you can always call those guys and say, hey, I'm doing a period piece. I want to know if you guys can come out. Because they're probably going to have real swords, too. I mean, they have their fighting swords, which are not real. But I have, right now, at my house, probably $2,500 worth of swords. That could be everything from the 17th century Scottish all the way back to a 3rd century Roman spatha, which is a longsword, like the cavalry sword. And if you need any of that stuff, you call me up. I got this. Or are you calling me up and say, I'm looking for someone who does medieval blah blah blah. I got a phone. I'll make a phone call.
But also look at basically it's a copying situation.
Yeah.
Prime example is one of the episodes of War Dogs, of all things to do. We did a special episode where the actors who played the characters actually were on camera.
Right.
And we gave the task of Serge. I gave him like $20 to go and do this. And he was able to take the Lego and take helmets and then, put what he needed to make it look like the helmets, look at their outfits and do their best to kind of mimic it and play around with it. And it was just a task of mix and matching. It's like, well, this is the Lego, this is what we've got. What do I have, or what can I get that I can, make that? I'm not going to have a helmet that looks exactly like that, but that looks like a baseball helmet, and then I can just get some fiber or some cloth, build that up, or whatever Sergio did.
Foam rubber works great.
Foam rubber, and just go and find pictures of the 1940s, of the Old West, or whatever. And look at those and go, okay, how do I manufacture? How do I create that with stuff from my kitchen, from my closet or
Yep.
from a thrift store,
Yep.
or go online and search Amazon. So what can I do? Type in Western or whatever, and find those little tidbits here and there.
Research and time will give you what you need.
Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I wrote the book on how to make a movie with no money. And here it is. See, it's got pictures and everything. So head on over to our website, notsosane.com, and get your digital or paperback copy today.